Hello everyone. In today's video, we are going to talk about top 50 most asked C# interview questions and answers. Myself Mohammad Zubair, and this channel is all about showing you how to become a highly paid IT pro really fast. So without any further ado, let's get started. Number 1. What is C#? Please explain. C# is a modern programming language and Microsoft created it. C# is an object-oriented language that is significantly closer to a Java and C++ programming language. This language was proposed to be one of the modern, simple, object-oriented and general-purpose languages. And this language was intended to create software and its components. Number 2. How can you differentiate between C and C#, or how can you differentiate C from C#? First of all, let's talk about C#. Well, C#, it is an object-oriented programming language. We can use the C# programming languages in unsafe mode. We have garbage collection available in C# and it gets managed by the CLR or Common Language Runtime. In C#, we require to have .NET framework to execute the C# language. C# is more of a design-specific language. We have a total of 86 keywords that we use in C#. Now, let's talk about C. C is not an object-oriented programming language, but it is a procedural one. It cannot be used in unsafe mode. We do not have garbage collection available in C. We can execute the C language on cross-platforms, and C programming language is more function-specific. In C, we have a total of 32 keywords available. Number 3. Please explain CLR or Common Language Runtime. CLR is a virtual and essential component of the .NET framework. It is a runtime environment that runs our code and helps makes the development process more accessible by offering different services like type safety, memory management, remoting, thread management, robustness, etc. CLR is also responsible for managing the execution of the .NET program irrespective of any .NET programming language. Along with execution, it also helps in management of code. That code is known as managed code. And those code that do not target the runtime are known as unmanaged code. Number 4. Explain garbage collection or collector in C#. Well, in the .NET framework, automatic memory management gets possible through garbage collection. When we create a class object at runtime in C#, specific spaces are allocated to it in the heap memory. But after getting done with all the actions related to the object in the program, as the memory assigned to it cannot be used, it is considered a waste. In such case, garbage collector or collection is instrumental. It automatically releases that waste memory after it is no longer needed. Garbage collection only takes place if one of the following condition is satisfied. If the system has low physical memory, garbage collection is necessary. Garbage collection only occurs when this is called, but this only occurs unusually as garbage collection runs on its own automatically. If memory allocated to various objects in heap memory exceeds the preset threshold value, garbage collection occurs. Number 5. What are the attributes in C# and their significance? Well, C# provides the developers with a way they can use to define the declarative tags on specific entities such as methods, class, etc. These are called attributes, and we can retrieve the attributes information at the runtime with the help of reflection. Number 6. What's the difference between Directcast and Ctype. We use Directcast to convert the type of object that requires the runtime to be the same as the specified in the Directcast. The Ctype is used for the conversion defined between the expression and the type. Number 7. What do you mean by sealed classes in C#? Well, sealed classes gets used when we want to restrict the user from inheriting the specific class. We can seal a class by using the keyword sealed. The sealed keyword indicates to the compiler that a specific class is sealed, and as a result, that class cannot be executed. We cannot drive a class from the sealed class. And here we have the code snippet, and this is how we declare a class as a sealed class. So here we have a keyword as sealed, and then we have our class name. In the body or in the structure, you can have different things, like you can have your data members, you can declare and use your methods as well. Number 8. What do you understand by the term enum in C#? Enum is also known as enumeration. It is a value data type in C#. Mainly, it uses the string values or names to the integral constraints, making a program easy to maintain and read. Let's say 4 suits in a deck of cards can be considered as 4 enumerators, like diamonds, heart, club, and spade, and they belong to an enumerated type named suit. Another example can include colors, directions, days of the week, etc. Enumeration gets declared using the keyword enum directly inside the namespace, structure, or a class. Number 9. What do you mean by namespace in C#? Well, a namespace provides a way to keep one set of names different from the other set of names that are available, like class names. One of the most significant advantage of using the namespace is class names that are declared in one namespace will not clash with the same class names that are declared in another namespace. It is also referred to as the name group of classes with common features. Number 10. What and who can be the member of the namespace? Well, the namespace members can be interfaces, structures, delegates, etc. Number 11. What do you mean by thread pooling? A thread pool is a concept where we have a collection of threads that performs the task without creating disturbance for the primary thread. Once the thread completes the task, it returns to the primary thread. Number 12. What do you mean by destructor in C#? Destructor usually gets used to clean up the memory and free resources, but in C# programming language, this gets done by the garbage collector on its own. System.Gc.collect gets called internally for this process, but sometime we might have to implement the destruct manually. Number 13. How do you define using a statement in C#? The keyword using denotes the particular namespace that is being used by the program. For using system, the system is a namespace and the class console is defined under system. Number 14. What do you mean by JIT compiler and its process? Well, JIT is called as just-in-time compiler, and it is a part of the common language runtime in .NET that is responsible for the execution of .NET programs regardless of any of the .NET programming language. A compiler specific to any programming language converts the source code to the machine language. After that, this intermediate language gets converted into machine code by JIT or just-in-time compiler. This machine code is specific to the environment of the computer on which the JIT compiler runs. Number 15. Elaborate on the differences between abstract classes and interface. How many types of classes are there in C#? Well, first of all, let's talk about abstract classes, then we'll move towards the interface. We have both declaration and definition parts in abstract classes. We have constructor in abstract classes. We cannot achieve multiple inheritance with abstract classes. We have static members in abstract classes. In abstract classes, it contains different access modifiers like protected, private, public, etc. Performance-wise, abstract classes are fast. In abstract classes, it contains constants, fields, methods, etc. Now let's talk about interface. In the interface, we only have the declaration part. The interface does not contain a constructor. In interface, we can achieve multiple inheritances. We do not have static members in inheritance. As everything in the abstract is public, that's why it contains public access modifier. The performance is slow as inheritance requires time to look for the actual methods in corresponding classes. We only can have methods in the interface. Number 16. What is the difference between finalized and final blocks? The finalized method gets called just before the garbage collection. Some of the main priorities are to perform the cleanup operations for unmanaged code. It gets automatically invoked when an instance is not called subsequently. Finally, a block is used after executing our try and catch block. It gets used for the exception handling, whether or not the exception is caught. Generally, this block of code has clean code. Number 17. What is the difference between read-only and constant in C#? While in C#, a constant keyword gets used to declare the constant fields and locals. The value of the constant remains the same throughout the program, and once the constant field gets declared, its value cannot be changed or not to be changed. In C#, constant locals and fields are no variable, and a constant can be a number, null, reference, string, or boolean value. On the other hand, the read-only keyword gets used to declare a read-only variable. This keyword depicts that we can assign variable only when we declare a variable or in the constructor of the same class in which it gets declared. Number 18. Define C# IO classes and list down the commonly used classes. While C# contains system.io namespace that has classes that compute and perform the various operations on files like opening, creating, and deleting. Some of the commonly used IO classes are as follows. File. It helps us with the file manipulation. Then comes stream reader. Generally, it gets used for reading the characters to stream. Then we have string writer. It gets used for writing the string buffer. Then we have string reader. Well, we use it for reading the string buffer. Then comes stream writer. Well, it gets used for writing the characters to a stream. Number 19. What do you mean by inheritance, and does C# support inheritance? Well, inheritance is an important concept and pillar of object-oriented programming. It is one of the mechanisms in C# with the help of which a class is allowed to inherit the features of another class. We have different phenomena in inheritance: superclass, subclass, and reusability. A superclass is a class whose features gets inherited from the subclass or other class known as the superclass. The subclass is the class that inherits or uses the other, known as subclass. It is also known as child class, derived class, or extended one. Along with inherited methods and fields, subclasses can also have their methods and fields. Reusability. Well, with inheritance comes the concept of reusability. For example, when we create a new class and there exists a class already that includes some of the code, fields, and methods, we can derive our new class from that class. In doing this, We reuse the fields and methods of the existing class as many times as per the need. Number 20. What's the difference between array and ArrayList? The array can be defined as the group of like-typed or same-typed variable that get referred to by a common name. On the other hand, ArrayList represents the ordered collection of an object that we can index individually. Basically, it is an alternate of an array. Let's talk about some differences, and first of all, I'll talk about array. Well, it has a fixed size and we cannot change it dynamically. In terms of namespace, it belongs to System.Array namespace. We can only store one data type in an array like int, char, string, etc. But we cannot do them all together. Insertion and deletion functions in an array are very fast. Now let's talk about ArrayList. Well, we can increase or decrease the size dynamically in case if needed. ArrayList belongs to System.Collection namespace. In ArrayList, we can store multiple data types. Insertion and deletion functions are slower in ArrayList than in array. Number 21. Define async and await. Async and await keyword gets used for the creation of asynchronous method in C#. Here we have a code snippet in which you can see we have called our async and our await methods. You can have the delay as per your liking. We have the 100. In our second one that says public async task my test method, we are calling our calculate count, which is the first one. And this is how you can use both of them in your C#. Number 22. How exception handling works, and list down some types. The exception is an error that occurs or happens at runtime. With C# exception handling subsystem, we can handle the runtime error in a controlled and structured manner. The primary advantage of exception handling is that it automates much of the error handling code. We have some types of exception handling and they are as follows. Array type mismatch exception. Well, this particular type of exception comes when the type of value being stored is incompatible with the array type. Indexed out of range exception. When an index array is out of bound, this exception gets raised. Overflow exception. When an arithmetic overflow occurs, this type of exception gets raised. Then we have null reference exception. When we attempt the operation on a null reference and a reference that does not refer to an object, this exception gets raised. Out of memory exception. This exception is raised when we have insufficient memory to continue the program execution. Then we have invalid cast exception. When a runtime case is invalid, this exception gets raised. Divide by 0 exception. When we try to divide an integer value by 0, this type of exception gets raised. Number 23. What do you mean by custom control and user control? Well, custom controls are controls that get generated as the compiled code, and they are also known as the DLLs. These controls can be added to the toolbox and are easier to use. We can easily use and add the custom controls with and in multiple applications, but for that, shared DLLs must be there. In case they are private, we can copy the DLL to the bin directory of our web applications, and then we can add the reference and use them. On the other hand, the user controls are very similar to ASP, including the files, and these controls are easy to develop and create. We cannot place these controls in the toolbox, and the file extension for the user control is ASCX. Number 24. What do you mean by tuple in C#? The word itself means a data structure that consists of multiple paths. So in easy word, a tuple or tuple is a data structure that gives us the easiest way to represent the data set that has many values that might or might not be released. or related to each other. First, it was introduced in .NET Framework 4.0. With tuple, we can add 1 to 8 elements, and in case if we try to add more than 8 elements, the compiler will throw an error. And when we want to create a data structure containing the object with their properties, and we do not want to create and have a different type, the tuple is generally used. Number 25. What's the difference between finalize and dispose methods in C#? The main difference between finalize and dispose method is that dispose should be explicitly invoked by the user, and finalize gets called by the garbage collector when an object gets destroyed. Number 26. What do you mean by singleton design pattern in C#? Singleton design pattern is a typical design pattern in C#. This pattern only has one instance in a program that offers and gives global access to it. In other words, we can say that a singleton is a class that only allows one instance of itself to be made, and usually it gives simple access to that particular instance. We use different approaches to carry out singleton design in C#. The regular attributes of singleton design are as follows: private and parameterized single constructor. The static variable holds the reference to the single made example. Sealed classes. Then we have a public and static method for getting the reference to the made example. Number 27. What do you mean by events in C#? An event in C# is nothing but just a notification that some action has occurred. Events and delegates are related to each other, as an event gets to build on the delegate, and both expand the set of programming tasks in such a way that C# can be applied. An event is an automatic notification that something has occurred, and it works in the following manner. Any object interested in an event first registers an event handler for that particular event. When the event occurs, all those registered handlers are called. The delegates represent event handlers. Events are more specifically part of a class and are declared using the keyword event. So this is how it looks like. Event delegate, then comes the event name. Here, the event delegate is the name of the delegate used to support the event, and the event name is the name of the specific event object being declared. Number 28. How do you implement the singleton design pattern in C#? Well, in C#, we can implement a singleton design pattern using thread safety singleton, thread safety singleton with double check locking, thread safe without a lock, using .NET 4's type, no thread safe singleton. Number 29. What do you mean by jagged arrays? A jagged array is a type of array in which we have multiple arrays. The member arrays can have different size, mean, length of each array index can be different. The element of the jagged array are the reference types, initialized to null. Jagged arrays can also have multi-dimensional arrays, but the number of rows must be fixed at the declaration time, but there can be different number of columns. Number 30. What do you know about constructor chaining in C#? We can call the overloaded constructor in C# from another constructor using this keyword, but the constructor must belong to the same class because this keyword points to the member of the same class in which it gets used. This particular type of calling for the overloaded constructor is called constructor chaining. Number 31. Explain the difference between System.String and System.Text.StringBuilder classes. System.String class is immutable, and when we try to modify the code of our string type variable, a new memory gets allocated to the new value, and the previously allocated memory gets released. On the contrary, System.String.StringBuilder is designed where we have multiple strings, and various operations can be performed without the need to allocate a separate memory location for our modified string variables or strings. Number 32. Give a syntax example for catching an exception in C#. Well, for catching exceptions in C#, we use try catch block just like many other programming languages. In our catch block, we can have a parameter of the system.exception type. So first of all, we declare our try block, and in that we try different things. And to catch those particular exceptions, we have a catch block, and this block catches those exceptions. So this is how it works. Number 33. Can we execute multiple catch blocks in C#? In terms of usage, the main purpose of catch block is to handle those exceptions raised in the try block. This block only gets executed when there is an exception. In C#, we can use more than one catch block with the try block. Generally, we use multiple catch blocks to handle multiple exceptions. Make sure not to use multiple catch blocks for the same exception type. Otherwise, you will get a compile time error exception because it is not permitted to use multiple catch block for the same type of try block in C#. In C#, catch block gets executed and checked in the order they occur in the program. If a given type of exception gets matched with the first catch block, then the first catch block gets executed and the remaining of the blocks are ignored. If the first catch block is unsuitable for the exception, the compiler searches for the next block and goes on. Number 34. What do you mean by generics in C#? Well, generic is a concept that gets used to ensure that we have decreased redundancy, increased type safety, and increased the performance concerning reusable code classes. With generics, we can have collection classes. To create the generic collection, system.collection.generic gets used instead of the classes such as ArrayList. Generic also promote the use of parameterized types. Number 35. Explain race condition. A race condition occurs when two threads try to access the same resources and try to change them at the same time. Which thread is going to access the resource first? It cannot be predicted. This type of condition is called a race condition. Number 36. What are the features of generic in C#? Generic is a technique that helps us to improve our program in many ways, such as it helps in the reusability of the code, performance, and type safety in our program. We can have generic collection classes. The .NET Framework class library has many generic collection classes in system.collection.generic namespace. We can also create our own generic class interfaces, methods, and delegates. We can get the information on the types used in the generic data types at runtime. Number 37. What is the difference between SortedList and SortedDictionary in C#? SortedList is a collection of the value pairs or key pairs that are sorted according to the keys. This collection sorts the key or value pairs in ascending order and is of both non-generic and generic type of collection. On the other hand, SortedDictionary is a generic collection that gets used for sorting or storing the key or value pairs in a sorted form, and all the sorting is done on the key. Now let's have some of the differences between SortedList and SortedDictionary. First of all, I'll talk about SortedList. Well, the memory of SortedList is an overhead. In SortedList, the fragmentation of memory is high. For storage, SortedList requires less memory. In SortedList, the data is already in sorted form. Now let's talk about SortedDictionary. The memory of our SortedDictionary is bottlenecked. In SortedDictionary, the memory's fragmentation is low. It requires to have high memory for storage. In SortedDictionary, we have data in the unsorted form. Number 38. What do you mean by delegates in C#? Delegates are the same as function pointers in C++, and the only difference between the two is that they are type safe. Unlike function pointers, delegates are required and used because they can allow the writing of much more generic type safe functions. Number 39. Explain the accessibility modifiers in C#. Well, access modifiers are those keywords that define the accessibility of a class, member, or data type in our program. These are mainly used to restrict those data manipulation that is unwanted by external programs or classes. We have 4 main access modifiers, and they are named as public, private, internal, and protected. They define 6 different accessibility levels as well, and these are private, public, private protected, internal, protected, protected internal. Number 40. What do you mean by boxing and unboxing in C#? Boxing and unboxing are very important concepts in C#. We have 3 data types in C# type system. The first is value type, in which we have int, char, etc. Then we have reference type, which means objects, and the last is pointer type. They convert a value type into a reference type and vice versa. Boxing and unboxing allows the unified view of the type system where a value of any type can be treated as an object. Now let's talk about boxing in detail and let's see how it works. Boxing is an implicit conversion process in which object type gets used. The process of converting char, int, etc. data types into reference types or object is known as boxing. The value type is always stored in the stack and the reference type is stored in heap. Now let's talk about unboxing in C#. Well, it is a conversion process that is explicit. The process of converting the reference data type into the value types is known as unboxing. Number 41. Explain the difference between class and struct in C#. A class is a blueprint that user defines, or it is a prototype and objects are created from it. In class, it combines the method and fields in a single unit. On the other hand, struct or structure is the collection of variables composed of different data types under a single unit. It is very similar to class because both are user-defined data types and both hold different data types. Number 42. What do you mean by reflection in C#? Well, with reflection, we describe the metadata of the methods, types, and fields in code. Reflection allows us to obtain data about the leaded assemblies and their elements like methods, value types, classes, etc. Number 43. What do you mean by multithreading in C#? Well, multithreading, as the name suggests, is the process where we have multiple threads in a single process. Each thread performs a different activity and we can use them for multiple tasks. Let's say we have a class and we have 2 different methods in that class. With the help of multithreading, we can execute each method with a separate thread. So we can say that the main advantage of multithreading is we can achieve multitasking at the same time and at the same time maximize the utilization of the CPU and system resources. Multithreading works on the phenomena of time sharing, which ensures that every thread has its own time for execution and does not get affected by the execution of another thread. This time interval gets allocated by the operating system. Number 44. What do you mean by virtual methods in C#? Well, virtual methods in C# are the strategies we can reclassify in the derived classes. We can implement the virtual methods in our base and derived classes, and it gets utilized with the method's fundamental functionalities. In terms of the declaration, the virtual method gets declared in the parent class, which then can be overridden in the child class we create a virtual method in the base class by using a virtual keyword, and then that method gets overridden in the derived class using the override keyword. The derived classes don't need to inherit the virtual method, but the virtual method must be created and present in the base class. Number 45. What do you mean by serialization? Serialization is the process of converting the object into a stream of bytes. When there is a need to transport an object through the network, we have to convert the object into a stream of bytes. And for any object to be serializable, the iSerialize interface should be implemented by it. Deserialization is the reverse process of compiling or creating the object from the stream of bytes we get by serialization. Number 46. What do you mean by hashtable in C#? Well, the hashtable class in C# represents the collection of value or key pairs that get organized on the basis of the hash code of the key. This class comes under the category of system.Collection namespace. The hashtable class offers different type of methods used to perform the different types of operations on our hash table. Keys are used in hashtable to access the element in the collection. For giant and large hashtable objects, we can increase the maximum capacity up to 2 billion elements in a 64-bit system. Number 47. Explain the difference between early binding and late binding in C#. When an object gets assigned to an object variable of some specific type, the C# compiler performs the binding with the help of the .NET framework. In C#, we have to say yes to bindings, early binding and late binding, which is also known as dynamic binding. In late binding, our compiler does not know what kind of object it is, what method or other properties it has in it, and whether the object in it is dynamic or not. Types of objects gets decided based on the data they hold on the right hand side during the runtime. Late binding gets achieved by the use of virtual method, and in terms of performance it is slower than the early binding. It checks and recognizes the properties and methods at the compile time in early binding, and in early binding the compiler knows about the kind of object and what properties and methods are there in it. Here we have the object as static object, and in terms of performance it is faster than the late binding. Number 48. Explain the difference between out and ref keywords. The out is a keyword we use to pass the argument to our method as a reference type in C#. Generally, it gets used when a method returns multiple values, but the out parameter does not pass the property. The ref is also a keyword that we use to pass the argument by reference in C#. We can also say that if any changes are made in the arguments in our method, it will reflect in that variable when control returns back. The ref parameter also does not pass the property. Number 49. What do you mean by partial classes in C#? A partial class is a unique feature in C#, and it offers and allows us a unique ability to implement the functionality of one class into multiple files. All those files are then combined into a single class file on the compilation of the application. A partial class gets created by using the keyword partial. We can also use this keyword to split the functionalities of interfaces, structures, or methods into multiple files. Here is a code snippet as you can see. Number 50. What do you mean by LINQ in C#? Well, LINQ is also known as the Language Integrated Query, and it was introduced in .NET 3.5 version and Visual Studio 2008. LINQ offers the ability to .NET languages like C#, Visual Basic, etc. to generate the queries to retrieve the data from the data source. For example, let's say a program may get the info from the employee record or the student record earlier. This type of data used to be stored in a separate database from the application. and we needed to learn different types of query languages to access such data like XML, SQL, etc. To get rid of such problem, Microsoft developed LINQ as it attached and add power to C# or other .NET languages, and it helps to generate the queries for any data source that is compatible with LINQ. The good thing is that the syntax used for creating the query remains the same no matter what type of data source gets used. We can also use the LINQ with SQL, XML files, etc. And that was all about those 50 questions that you can consider for your next C# programming interview questions. I hope now that you must have liked watching this video. If that is the case, please leave a like, subscribe and press the bell icon. I'll get back to you in the next video. Till then, take care.